que ven a nadie.
Uhuru, Uhuru. Welcome to the monthly event of the African People's Solidarity Committee. In today's event, we will be discussing the case of the Uhuru Three and calling on white people to be part of the important fight back against the FBI's and the US government's attack on the Black Liberation Movement. My name is Brendan McCoy. I'm a member of the African People's Solidarity Committee, or APSC. The African People's Socialist Party formed APSC in 1976 with the mandate that we organize other white people to build the movement of reparations and genuine solidarity with the liberation of African people. That is our assignment, and we work under the direct leadership of the African People's Socialist Party. Before we get started, if you are tuning in on YouTube, make sure to like and subscribe so you can get alerts whenever we go live or put up a new video. If you're tuning in on Facebook, please share this live stream with your friends. Let us know in the comments where you're tuning in from. We'll be having a Q&A later on in the program. So take notes and enter your questions either in the Q&A feature on Zoom or in the comments on YouTube or Facebook. I want to let people know that this event is a fundraiser for the Uhuru Solidarity Center, which is the national headquarters of the Solidarity Movement, where we are right now. It's a beautiful organizing center located on the south side of St. Louis with a banner outside that reads "Unity Through Reparations." The building is owned by the party's Black Star Industries. And tonight we have a goal to raise $1,000. So please, sometime throughout the program, go to apscuhuru.org/donate, and we'll be putting that in the chat as well. In today's event, we will hear an overview presentation and an update from two members of the Uhuru 3, APSC Chair Penny Hess and Uhuru Solidarity Movement Chair Jesse Nevel. I want to salute our leadership, the chairman of the African People's Socialist Party, Omali Yeshitela, who developed the theory of African internationalism and who represents the leadership of the African Revolution around the world. I would also like to salute Deputy Chair Onezene Yeshitela, who coordinates the economic development work of the movement, including the inspiring Black Power Blueprint programs right here in St. Louis, Missouri. So I'm excited to talk about the case of the Uhuru 3 and how we can organize and build this fight back. So I want to give a big welcome to APSC Chair Penny Hess and USM Chair Jesse Nevel. Turning it over to you guys.
Well, thank you so much, Brendan, and I'm very excited to be here tonight. We realize that we've spoken about the Uhuru 3 case many times, but not really at an APSC event. So we wanted to be able to do this tonight and to be able to have people raise questions or talk to us about it. So I'm very excited to be here. And I really want to welcome my comrade, Jesse Nevel, and both of us are part of the Uhuru 3, which of course, as we know, is targeting Chairman Omali Yeshitela. And as members of the African People's Solidarity Committee, we are really the attack on us is part of the attack on the chairman.
Right.
And, I just really want to welcome Chairman. I do see that you're on, so you are welcome to come on anytime you want, Chairman Omali Yeshitela. And I do want to salute you, Chairman, for just giving the incredible leadership and the ability for white people for the first time in history to have a principled relationship to the African Revolution under the leadership of the vanguard party, the African People's Socialist Party, with the mandate to go into the white community to organize other white people for reparations and to win that, which is the main work that we do as the African People's Solidarity Committee. And of course, I also want to salute Deputy Chair Onezene Yeshitela, who is the coordinator, the architect, as she is known, of the Black Power Blueprint, incredible program here in St. Louis, but also many other institutions of the African People's Socialist Party in other parts of the US and other parts of the world. And just to say that, it's an honor that many of us from the Solidarity Committee work under the direct leadership of your office, of Deputy Chair Onezene Yeshitela's office. And I also salute Chair Mwezi, who is the Secretary General of the party and who is the chair of the Hands Off Uhuru, Hands Off Africa Fightback Coalition, and Director Akile Anai, Director Chimarenga, Selambao, and many, many other leaders and powerful members of the African People's Socialist Party. But I'll also just want to say before we start that we do have in the room with us some comrades from out of town. So exciting. We have Comrade Stephanie, Comrade Allison, but really want to welcome Paul Kessler, who came all the way. Yes, he's here all the way from Spokane, Washington, and who is has many talents, but certainly is a very talented and skilled artisan carpenter that just makes beautiful, beautiful furniture and is making some how would you say it? Some cabinets for Uhuru Foods and Pies and the new restaurant, the Uhuru Bakery Cafe, that's going to be opening up in a few months here in North St. Louis, which is really exciting. Can't wait for that. So we are excited to talk about the Uhuru 3 case tonight, and to say this is a very serious attack on the African liberation movement, a continuation of the kind of COINTELPRO and other FBI covert but also overt attacks against the African liberation movement of the 1960s, which saw assassinations, which saw mass imprisonment, political imprisonment for many people for many years, and did everything within their power to attempt to destroy that movement of the 60s. But we understand, the significance of the African People's Socialist Party, which had from the very beginning, led by Chairman Omali Shatella, the goal to complete the Black Revolution of the 1960s, to fight back the attacks on the African liberation movement, and to never, to never stop fighting for it, to relentlessly fight for the total liberation of Africa, the unification of all African people everywhere, and the return of all of the stolen resources, minerals, money, everything that is owed to African people. This is the future. And as the chairman has said, he is fighting for independence in his lifetime. Yeah, so just to say a couple more things that we want to talk about before we get into this case, because as we said, the African People's Socialist Party is very serious about self-government. This is not a movement that is about making the system better. It's not about making America better.
Right.
That this recognizes, the chairman has always recognized that this land belongs to the indigenous people. It still does. It is their stolen land, as they have been forced onto what is called reservations in deep poverty, based on the reality that white people are the colonizers, that white people have stolen this land, and we're the ones that experience the prosperity at the expense of African and indigenous people in this country. So so we understand that the African People's Socialist Party is very serious. It has an organization, a highly disciplined, democratic centralist organization. It is a party. It has cadre. It has cadre who are committed to do whatever it takes to win the liberation of Africa and African people. And it has members on the continent of Africa and here inside of the stolen borders of the US, as well as in Europe and in the Caribbean. So so it's very, very exciting, to see this growing movement for African liberation that the chairman has fought for over 50 years. And this attack by the FBI cannot push it back. Right. It is growing. And after the raids of 2022 that were very brutal, that we're going to talk about a little bit more, and we're going to see a video about as well. And we are, and by the way, we were supposed to show the video, so we need to do that. I do want to show the video.
About the raids.
Yeah, about the raids, that we were supposed to do that a little earlier, and then we can get back in. But let me just say a couple more things first, because one of the things that is really important about the party is that, again, it is leading a worldwide movement that unites African people everywhere to liberate Africa and all its resources. And it does so in unity with indigenous people, with the Palestinian people, with all oppressed and colonized peoples, fighting for and acknowledging their right to control their own land, resources, and self-government. And that is really critical. And the chairman has developed the political theory of African internationalism that understands what the chairman calls the colonial mode of production. And that means that there is nothing that white people experience or that anyone experiences in this world that is not part of a system built on the enslavement of African people, on the theft of African land and resources, and on the genocide against the indigenous people and the colonization of the majority of the people on the planet Earth. This is what the colonial mode of production. That means that colonialism is not a bad policy from the past. It is not something that was a phase that was, as people have said, a blight on America's soul. It is, in fact, the world that we live in today. It is everything that we experience, including how we see ourselves and the things that we take for granted as the colonizers living at the expense of African and indigenous people here. So one of the main reasons that Chairman Omali Yeshitela has come under attack in the African People's Socialist Party is because of these institutions that the party has created, the Black Power Blueprint, the Burning Spear, the Uhuru House, and that, as the chairman has said, this case and our trial is set for September 3rd in the Middle District of Florida, in Tampa, Florida. We are calling on everybody's got to be there. This is going to be history in the making, because if they convict the chairman, there will not be the First Amendment as we know it for anyone, because it is a test case. It is the case that will set the precedent for how the First Amendment right to free speech will be exercised in this country in the future. And the chairman calls it, and Jesse, maybe you want to say something about this, the anti-colonial free speech movement. And, you know, maybe you could say a little bit about what does the chairman mean by anti-colonial free speech and the free speech movement for anti-colonial free speech?
Yeah, Uhuru, thank you, Chairwoman Penny, for the overview, and just want to join you in saluting Chairman Omali Yeshitela and the African People's Socialist Party and Deputy Chair Onezene Yeshitela and everybody who's here, and you, Chairwoman Penny, and it's an honor to participate in this important discussion about the case of the Uhuru Three and this whole question of anti-colonial free speech that is so important for us to understand. And, you know, in studying the history of you know, the struggle in this country, including in your book, Overturning the Culture of Violence, and hearing Chairman Omali Yeshitela talk about what happened in the 1960s when white college students at UC Berkeley were tabling in support of the Black movement, and they were arrested. They were asked by campus police to show their IDs, and then they were arrested, and this sparked the free speech movement on the Berkeley campus. Mm-hmm. But as Overturning the Culture of Violence, the book points out, as the chairman has pointed out, these white students completely forgot about the thing that was actually the impetus for that struggle, which was solidarity with the African movement. And instead of fighting for the right of African people to free speech and the right to stand with African people fighting for their liberation, it became about basically the right of white people to say whatever we want. And that's the difference between an opportunist kind of approach to this and an anti-colonial free speech movement, where it's not about fighting for our rights within colonialism. It's about fighting for the right of African, indigenous, and colonized people to use their right to free speech to advocate and organize for their liberation from colonialism. And that, when, you know, the attack on Chairman Omali Yeshitela is an attack on anti-colonial free speech. And when you attack anti-colonial free speech, you are attacking all free speech, because that is the as the chairman says, the canary,
foundation.
the foundation, the canary in the coal mine. And just wanted to quickly mention, Chairwoman Penny, we saw in the news right before we started this, just as a perfect example of the intensification of the assault on anti-colonial free speech that is happening directly in the wake of this attack on Chairman Omali Yeshitela, that has been ushered in by this attack on Chairman Omali Yeshitela. The US Congress today overwhelmingly passed a resolution declaring the slogan "From the river to the sea, Palestine will be free" to be anti-Semitic hate speech.
So from the river to the sea,
Palestine will be free.
Is it illegal?
Well, I mean, when they call it anti-Semitic hate speech, they're trying to establish a legal pretext to criminalize the use of that the use of those words. So that's what they're attempting to do.
It's really, really, really a serious situation. And this is what they're trying to do with the attack on Chairman Omali Yeshitela. They're trying to say that the right to organize for African liberation, that African people would be free, will also, be criminalized.
Exactly.
This is what it's talking about. And if we do not, as white people, understanding that this colonial reality, the colonial mode of production, that everything that we have is at the expense of African and colonized peoples, that if we do not fight for the anti-colonial free speech, then we're talking about having a kind of free speech at the expense of everybody else. And, the chairman keeps making the point that the First Amendment was written for white people because it was written in 1791, or something like that, when African people were still enslaved.
Right.
And so, so really what we're talking about is if the chairman is convicted, it's like a throwback to the enslavement of African people, of no rights. The Dred Scott decision by the Supreme Court in 1857 which said that Black people have no rights that white people have to respect. That's what they're trying to do. They're trying to push back the clock. And as we're saying, even rights that sectors of the white population who, though sitting on the pedestal, experience some kinds of oppression from the ruling class, like LGBTQ and white women and disability rights. These are things that were won off the motion of democratic rights, of the anti-colonial free speech of African people. That's what won it in the 1960s. And, we need to recognize that and, just begin to really internalize what it would mean if Chairman Omali Yeshitela gets convicted, and we cannot let that happen. And that if white people are convicted, two white people who, we have a right to be under the leadership of the African Revolution and to fight for reparations. And in the indictment, which we're going to talk about in just a minute, the whole question of reparations has been criminalized and weaponized. And they say that somehow the party is talking about reparations under the influence of the Russians, which in 1982, when they had the first tribunal on reparations to African people held, in which Chairman Omali Yeshitela was the people's advocate and very, very brilliant, was held in Brooklyn, New York, 42 years ago. But then somehow the indictment says in the year 2014, the party suddenly came under the influence of the Russians around the question of reparations and the whole question of genocide, which, the party used the Genocide Convention to prove that the US government is guilty of genocide against African people. And to as part of the indictment of the people's indictment by the African population against the US government in 1982. So this is a very serious case. It is a test case.
Yes.
Our lawyers say there has never been anything like it that they've ever seen. And they are studying the First Amendment law. Many of them weren't First Amendment lawyers, but they are now.
Mhm.
And they have gone through case law and book after, volume after volume of these legal cases. And there's not anything in the history of this country really that indicts anybody just for their speech. Just for their speech is usually in connection with other actions.
Mhm.
So the best that they could do was say that our speech was action because it was under the leadership of the Russians. I mean, it's just, it's outrageous, and it is truly anti-African, racist, colonialist, just really condescending, that would say that African people don't have agency. So yeah, so this case is not about drugs or murder or violence or fraud or human trafficking or all the things that you read about every day. This is about the speech of African people. We have to fight like hell to push back this case. And we're very confident that we are winning.
Yes.
We are winning. The chairman has just, given brilliant, dynamic, political and organizational leadership to the Hands Off Uhuru, Hands Off Africa, Fight Back, and just garnered massive support from around the country and around the world across the political spectrum. So we are very, very confident. And we are going to show a video of Chairman Omali Yeshitela speaking about the free speech question. And we showed this at the National Lawyers Guild convention in Chicago this past weekend, where Comrade Jesse was there. Leonard Goodman, our attorney, one of our attorneys was there, and I was on Zoom. So it was really, really a great event.
Real.
We talk about the First Amendment rights of the Constitution, which is really important for us to push on, to recognize, but African people were not guaranteed rights by the First Amendment. That was passed in 1791, the Constitution in 1791, and African people were enslaved during that time. It was only 1865 before slavery was formally over. So none of that was supposed to represent us and our interests. But we fought for it, and we won this this contest in the streets of this country. And at this, I would have mentioned that even the issue of desegregation and civil rights and stuff, the sitting president of the United States was opposed to it. He worked against that, and so instead of attacking us, if anybody who upholds what America is supposed to be about should be actually awarding us, and somebody is under attack, it would be the White House, because that's where the opposition to democracy and the constitutional rule and the rule of law that they like to talk about came from. And so I wanted to say that it's really important. I'm calling on people to get here, to come to St. Louis, to see what we've done, to see exactly what is the basis for this and this assault. The other thing I really want to mention is I think it's extremely important to acknowledge the significance of dear comrade Leonard Peltier. Because when you look at Leonard Peltier, you're looking at the part of the twin pillars of that this whole social system rests on as it relates to the immediate situation of the United States. Here we're talking about a man who's been locked up for nearly 50 years in prison, living in a Gaza, if you will, of his own in terms of the concentration camps that they euphemistically refer to as Indian reservations in this country on their own land. And now in defending the land against the most horrendous kind of attacks that resulted in, I don't know how many indigenous people killed, he's locked up. And we have to say free Leonard Peltier, not another year, not another day. He has to come out of those prisons. And it's necessary to say this also because as many liberals who have discovered us today for whatever reason. The truth of the matter is the only friends we had as African people when we were kidnapped and brought here in chains against our will were the indigenous people. The only friends we had. That's why there's so many Africans who in this country who can talk about having relatives who are indigenous. My grandmother was a so-called Indian, et cetera, because we became part of so-called nations of the indigenous people in this country. We fought side by side with them. It was necessary for the United States government to actually sign a treaty to be able to come onto Florida. Much of the wars that were called Indian wars that were fought by Jackson, the guy whose picture they have on the $20 bill, the other side of which they're talking about putting Harriet Tubman. Much of those wars were fought to recapture African people who had united with the indigenous people and fought fierce battles with them. And it took a long time for them to conquer Florida, in part because of that relationship. And I'm just mentioning Florida, there were others as well. I just want to say that this is a deep and profound relationship that we have with the indigenous people, and it's always been there. It's not something that just got created. And so free Leonard Peltier. Free Palestine, free Palestine. From the river to the sea, we say Palestine must be free. And we say from sea to shining sea, as it relates to this country, the indigenous people must be free. Their land, they are colonizing this massive settler colony they call the United States, just as the Palestinians locked up in a settler colony in occupied Palestine. When I say occupied Palestine, I mean, from the river to the sea. All of it is Palestinian, and Europeans were brought into that land for the purpose of facilitating the aspirations, the needs of capital through deepening the colonial domination of the Arab people in that particular area. You can check it out. You can find out about Sykes-Picot, where the French and the British got together and drew the existing borders that you look at. When you're talking about the wars that we see in Syria, the borders of Lebanon, the Palestine, Saudi Arabia, all of those were created because of white men. The colonizers created that in the process of constructing a whole colonial mode of production that continues to dominate the world at this moment. So I just wanted to say those things. And how am I on time? Somebody say something, guys. I know I thought
Just a few minutes, Chairman.
Say more?
Just a few minutes. Yeah, you can.
Okay, so I wanted to make those points. The critical thing I wanted to point out again, and this is sort of a restatement of something that I referenced, is that this issue of First Amendment, this constitutional rights, it's a critical kind of question, but it's bigger than what most people have understood. Because the First Amendment, like most of the constitutional amendments, were not done for African people. As I mentioned, the First Amendment was 1791. And Africans did not achieve anything that approximates freedom until 1865, when it was formally over. And it took a civil war to make that happen. And I think that when we look at this issue of constitutionality and the rights of the people, the dominant law that prevailed was something that was really emphasized in 1857 right here in St. Louis by the Supreme Court of the United States, that ruled that the black man had no rights that a white man had to respect. That was the law. That was the Supreme Court. That was an albatross that hung around the necks of a democratic America for the longest period of time. And even today, they act like that's the worst law that was ever done by the Supreme Court. But it wasn't overturned through another court. What it took to get rid of that was a civil war. It was a civil war. This was 1857 when this law was passed, when the Supreme Court made that ruling. So it was a civil war that happened that finally, at least formally, ended that. But it was only formality. That's why there had to be a civil rights bill, a voting rights act, all of these things to pretend that African people were included, to make it appear that African people had some kind of inclusion in terms of rights in this country. So this issue of then, if the First Amendment was not made for African people, and the United States is now in this situation, along with the rest of Europe, built on colonialism, built on attack on Africa, built on the attack of what is now known as the Americas. I mean, that gave birth to white power, white people, etc. This is what we're looking at right now. So if the First Amendment did not apply to us, what did it apply to? It applied to those people who were running from tyranny in Europe, who were running from feudalism in Europe, who were running from this situation where kings and queens, the monarchy dominated the world. And so they wanted to act like they wanted rights for themselves, because the only rights were there were divine rights of the king. That was what prevailed up to this time. So they codified what was supposed to be rights for them. And these rights were put in Constitution. And they included the First Amendment and all of these other amendments. They went through all kinds of struggles. They were Federalists. They were other kinds of things that they talk about in law right now that created this, that brought this into existence. But what are we looking at? If it was not for Black people, if it was not for the indigenous people, if it was not for the people, Mexican people, et cetera, in this country, who was the First Amendment right for?
Right.
It was for white people. So what is happening is that they were using an attack on Black people who they assume that white people hate enough because we want to be free people, because we're not fighting to be Americans, we're fighting to be free. If it's not for the Mexican people, it's for the white people. And so when they attack the First Amendment right, they're not attacking my rights, because I never had any. That's why there are civil rights bills and Voting Rights Act and things like this. They're attacking the rights of white people. Mm-hmm. And they feel like they can make this attack on everybody's right through using Africans, Mexicans, mm-hmm. indigenous people, Leonard Peltier, and everybody else. So this is the thing, should be a wake-up call. Yes, the First Amendment is really important. We're going to make them pretend that the First Amendment also applies to African people. They're either going to say First Amendment for everybody or the First Amendment for nobody. Come out and say it plain. And they're in a situation now where they're close to saying it's First Amendment for nobody. That's why everybody needs to come out September 3rd, be in Tampa, Florida.
Yes. First Amendment for everybody or First Amendment for nobody. And everybody needs to be at Tampa September 3rd for this trial, and just really appreciate that powerful analysis by Chairman Omali Yeshitela. I just want to say a couple things because I see in the chat, I really want to salute Franklin Perez. Mm-hmm. And he's saying that, you know, he is fighting for the Uhuru 3 to win their court case, because if we lose, then it will be a danger to free speech for everyone. Absolutely. And he is committed to coming to the trial on September 3rd. Franklin, we're very excited about that and really want other people to sign up to do that. And then I just wanted to say a powerful statement by Chairman Omali Yeshitela, who said, Uhuru, we must remember that when we talk about colonialism, it is not just some abstract pejorative term that we are using. It is a definition of a concrete political economic construct that we and the world are locked into and that must be overturned. This is what we are fighting to do. It must be overturned. It can't get better. It can't be ameliorated. It is something that must be overturned in order for African people to be free. And just to say really quickly, Paulette, our comrade from the Leonard Peltier Ad Hoc Committee, great analysis. Thank you, Chairman. See you in Tampa. Awesome. So, all right. So let's get back to what we're doing. And before we go to our next segment here, I wanted to salute our incredible team of attorneys and the legal defense coordinator, Director Chimurenga Salambao, and of course, all the tremendous leadership that Chairman Omali Yeshitela has given to the attorneys. But our attorneys are Leonard Goodman, Mutaki Akbar, Addie Griffin, Tom Inskeep, Angela Rainey, and Life Malcolm. Really, really a powerful team. Yeah. And there are others who work on other fronts, like the FOIA, which is the Freedom of Information Act, and the other kinds of filings that people are doing. So there's a huge amount of participation from different legal fronts. It's very powerful. So I am just going to give a brief overview about the raids we saw. Oh, no, I'm sorry. No, we're going to show a video of the raid. So you're going to see that. So Lisa, if you want to go ahead and put on the 3-minute video.
This is the FBI. You have a federal warrant for this address. Keep your hands up and follow orders. This is the FBI. We have a warrant for this.
They handcuffed me and my wife out here. They wanted me to sit on the curb while they were carrying this out, something that I refused to do. They wanted my wife to sit on the curb out here, that she refused to do.
As I was coming out, this big old drone met me.
The only revolutionary organization that's done something here on the ground practically for African people is the one that's come under attack. Institution that offers a community radio station, a newspaper, a commercial kitchen, an Aquaba Hall rental space, and community office for our organizers. That was the building that has come under attack.
You need a breach? What do you need? Need one. I don't know. Let's hold that money. Thank you.
We will build a movement of white people that says hands off the Uhuru movement.
They see in the African People's Socialist Party a vanguard for the struggle for the liberation of our people. They see that because not just what we do here in the United States, but because we had the temerity to do like Garvey, to do like Malcolm X, and take the struggle of black people around the world.
Uhuru, just really appreciate that video. And as many times as we've played it and seen it, it's so dynamic. It really tells the story in 3 minutes. Really want to salute the comrades who worked on that as well. And, you know, just to say a couple of things, as you could see in there, July 29th, 2022, we're getting close to 2 years. 2 years this has been going on. 7 homes and offices of the Uhuru movement in 2 cities. Here in St. Louis, four places were raided. St. Petersburg, Florida, 3 places were raided, all at the same time. So it was 5 a.m. here in St. Louis and 6 a.m. on the East Coast. And they jammed our phones, so we couldn't call anybody. We couldn't even call within the city to each other to say, hey, you know, they have assault rifles. They, you know, they're doing this. They're raiding us. We're under armed, you know, guard right at this moment. I mean, it was really, really outrageous. And they came to the home here in St. Louis of Chairman Omali Shatella and Deputy Chair Onizine Shatella, and forced them to come down the stairs at gunpoint with the rifle sightings at the chairman's chest, making him think immediately of what happened to Fred Hampton in 1969, on December 4th, 1969, at 4 o'clock in the morning, when they came in and assassinated him and Mark Clark. It was really outrageous. I also want to say, you know, you can see on the video, it was an army of FBI agents, especially at the Uhuru House in St. Petersburg, Florida. They went in to, you know, put up tape, and that is a big building with a lot of offices in it. And in just the damage that they did, they broke countless doors, I think almost every door in the Uhuru House. They came to Jesse and Amanda's house, apartment. They came here to the Uhuru Solidarity Center, as you can see on the video, right in, you know, again, in front of, right here on Gravois Avenue, in front of the whole community. They came to my house and Kitty Riley's. They came to Director Aquile's house. They came to the chairman's house in Florida, even though he wasn't there. They broke the door down to go in. And of course, they broke the door down at all of the places where we were. So this was, you know, really, really outrageous. The chairman and deputy chair were forced to, they demanded that they, after they were handcuffed, the FBI demanded that they sit on the curb, which they refused to do, as the chairman says in that video. The FBI, they were sending drones in. They were throwing grenades through the windows and the doors. They broke down, as we said, many doors. They took our computers and phones and files, about $20,000 or probably more.
Yeah.
Worth of damage that they did to these buildings, and stole electronics and equipment. So this was the raids, and they were in each site for about 7 hours.
Yeah.
Until noon, until almost noon in each place. So 7 hours going through everything with scores and scores of these disgusting FBI agents in every building.
Yep.
But, you know, we are fighting back under the leadership of the party, and, you know, we will win. But this was outrageous what they did, this attack on the African liberation movement.
True.
So I'm going to turn it over to Comrade Jesse to talk about the case.
Uhuru, thank you, Chairman Penny, for summing up, you know, what happened on July 29th. And, you know, that was, of course, not the beginning of the attack on the party, but it was when this particular aspect of the attack on the African Revolution came to public view.
Yes.
On July 29th. And it was 9 months later, that the US government indicted Chairman Omali Yeshitela, Chairwoman Penny Hess, and myself. It was actually 1 year from tomorrow, April 18th, 2023, when the federal grand jury in Tampa, Florida, issued an indictment of the chairman, Chairwoman Penny, and myself on.
Don't we just ask you, don't indictments usually come closer than 9 months?
It took a long time. Not only did it take a long time, but our attorneys were told by the prosecutors that they were expecting indictments within weeks. And that went on for months. That went on for 3 or 4 months after we were told that. And we were told that even the prosecutor was surprised. He said, I thought I would have had indictments by now. I'm waiting on the green light from Washington, D.C.
Yeah, so this came straight from the White House.
Right, exactly. So we were charged with 2 counts of federal felony charges totaling a maximum penalty of 15 years in federal prison for each of the Uhuru 3. And before going into a little bit about the case and the updates in the legal battle, I just want to quote 2 very important and concise statements from Chairman Omali Yeshitela that are necessary to provide political context for a discussion about the legal aspects of the case of the Uhuru Three. One is the chairman's famous statement that law is the opinion of the ruling class. And two is something the chairman has been saying, especially recently, which is that the colonizer has the law. The colonizer controls the law, but colonialism itself is illegitimate. The colonizers control the law, but colonialism itself is illegitimate.
Yes, a brilliant insight.
Yes. So in that vein, it's important to understand that while the US government is using the law, they are using specifically a law called 18 US Code Section 951, which was created out of the Espionage Act of 1917 to go after people that the United States government characterized as illegal agents that were a notch away from being considered spies, basically. They called this law espionage light. And they're using this law as the weapon by which to attack the African People's Socialist Party. But the basis for the attack is 100% political, not legal. There is no legal basis for the attack they're making against the party. The chairman and the Uhuru Three did not break the law. And as the chairman says, we are not guilty of these bogus charges. It is a political attack designed to liquidate the history of African people's struggle for liberation, as the chairman says, to diminish the agency of African people by saying that it's actually Russia or somebody else behind the scenes pulling the strings of the African people fighting for their liberation. The most repugnant, offensive, assertion that you could possibly make. And in waging this attack on the African liberation movement, the US government, in some of the court filings that they have filed in response to our motions and things like that, they have basically admitted that in the interests of what they call national security, which they consider putting Chairman Omali Yeshitela in prison, a question of the highest significance for national security of the United States. They said that in the interest of doing that, could this prosecution have a chilling effect on free speech? Sure, it could, and that's okay. That's the position of the United States government. They basically confirmed what we're saying, which is that this prosecution would be the end of free speech. And they're not even hiding it. So, but as the chairman teaches us, when we fight back, when we struggle, we can win. When we fight back under the leadership of the African working class, we will win. Yeah. So as we wage this struggle in the courts, it's so important that we continue to remember that the most important factor that will determine victory in September is what we do in the streets, how we organize and mobilize the people to come out and stand with the African People's Socialist Party against these bogus attacks. So to summarize the case very quickly, so as most people are aware at this point, the indictment alleges without evidence that Chairman Omali Yeshitela and the Uhuru movement's more than 50 years of struggle for African liberation suddenly became secret illegal agents of a Russian criminal conspiracy to sow discord in the United States beginning in 2014. And that's not me editorializing on what the indictment says. That's literally what the indictment says. In fact, there was a moment in the hearing in September where the judge was trying to get clarity from the prosecutor, like, what was the point of the conspiracy again? And the prosecutor said, to sow discord. So he said it very clearly. That's what it was about, stirring things up, essentially. Chairman Omali Yeshitela is the primary target of this political assault, which, as Chairwoman Penny laid out, continues the attacks on African people, including specifically by the FBI, going back to the inception of the FBI and the attack on Marcus Garvey, Malcolm X, and so many others. The two laws that the Uhuru Three are charged with violating are two federal criminal statutes. One, I already talked about, 18 U.S.C. 951, acting as illegal agents of a foreign government without notifying the Attorney General's office before acting. And that word acting is important in our motion for dismissal. And one count of 371, which is conspiracy to work with the Russian government to recruit people in the United States to work on behalf of the Russian government to sow discord. So those are the charges. This case has been widely recognized as the most serious political assault on the African liberation movement since the 1960s. And in May of last year, just a few weeks after the indictment was unsealed, we were arraigned in a federal court in Tampa, Florida. Chairman Amalia Shatella, Chairwoman Penny Hess, and myself were arrested, handcuffed, fingerprinted, photographed for mugshots, jailed for hours, and then brought into the courtroom in handcuffs and leg irons. 2 months later, in July of 2023, one of our attorneys, Leonard Goodman, working under the brilliant political leadership of Chairman Amalia Shatella, filed a motion for dismissal of the indictment on the grounds that the indictment itself, just the indictment, even if we were acquitted, to even allow it to go to trial would set an extremely dangerous precedent that would blow a hole in the First Amendment right to freedom of speech, because all of the overt acts, which Chairwoman Penny is going to talk about in a minute, named in the indictment, overt acts being those things that the so-called co-conspirators are alleged to have done in carrying out this big conspiracy, so-called conspiracy, all of the overt acts were free speech, were political speech, speech that is supposed to be protected by the First Amendment. And on January 26th of this year, the magistrate judge who works under the main judge in the case, the district judge, recommended a denial of the motion for dismissal. And our legal team filed an objection to that recommendation. So now that goes before the district judge, who over a month later, after it has been, the motion has been fully briefed, now we're over a month later, the district judge has still yet to rule on our original motion for dismissal on the grounds of the First Amendment. The essence of the magistrate and the prosecutor's argument is that the speech carried out by the chairman and the Uhuru Three is no longer speech, but is instead action when carried out under the alleged direction of the Russian government. And therefore, that speech loses its constitutional protection under the First Amendment. And if you read the indictment, you'll see that they actually argue two things. They say, well, their speech, is it speech? Technically, but not when they do it for the Russians, then it's action. Then they also say, but they also did things beyond speech. They also did actions beyond speech. And then they give examples of those actions, and they include giving speeches, publishing articles, travel, which the purpose of travel was to speak. So this is how they're trying to get around the First Amendment with this completely absurd and even within colonial law, completely unprecedented concoction that they've come up with, that they've manufactured to try to push this case through. And as I mentioned, they also argue, it's in a footnote in one of their documents, and the footnotes are always very revealing. They say, well, the right to free speech can be suspended in this case. Like they say, well, we're not violating free speech, but even if we were, it would be okay, because sometimes you have to do that in the interest of national security. So as Attorney Leonard Goodman points out, this is unprecedented. Never before, even in the history of US colonial law, has this foreign agents law, 18 USC 951, been used to target pure speech. They're not alleging, like Chairwoman Penny said, they're not alleging fraud. They're not alleging some kind of bribery or corruption or even anything having to do with elections, because that would be a separate charge. If they had some kind of election fraud or campaign finance fraud, they didn't charge us with anything like that. They charged us.
We didn't do anything.
Exactly, exactly. So it's purely based on speech. It's purely based on our words. 100% of it is based on words. It's based on publishing articles, based on Zoom meetings like the one we're doing right now. So, and then in terms of this whole thing, well, sometimes you gotta, just get rid of the First Amendment to protect national security.
Protect the First Amendment.
Right, exactly. You gotta kill democracy to save democracy.
Right.
Leonard Goodman points out that even if we were to accept that argument or the premise of the argument, there's no precedent for that. There's no precedent for using national security, the national security interest of what? Finding out who is or who isn't a foreign agent. That has never been used to justify criminalizing speech. So that would be also completely unprecedented. So these are some of the ways our case represents a litmus test for the US government's ability to suppress political speech. And I mentioned already the district judge has yet to make a final ruling. It's been over a month. As the chairman has helped us understand, it's not purely legal questions that have caused this problem, this process to take so long. It's everything happening in the world. It's a political question, ultimately, and the crisis that is rippling throughout the whole social system and the ruling class, including around questions of free speech. So a trial date is set in September in the federal court in Tampa, Florida. However, the struggle for the charges to be dropped is not over. And I'll just wanted to close by summing up one more thing, which is the struggle around the grand jury transcripts, because there have been a lot of very disturbing moves that the prosecutors have made in this whole process that make it pretty clear that they obviously intend for this to be a rigged trial that is designed to railroad Chairman Omali Yeshitela and the Uhuru Three into prison. And one of the things that our lawyers are taking on right now is calling for the prosecutors to disclose the transcripts of the grand jury proceedings that led to the indictments in the first place. Grand juries are secret. They're held in secret. And technically, in most cases, we are allowed to have access to those grand jury transcripts about a month before the trial, but we want them now, because our lawyers believe that when we get access to those grand jury transcripts, it will reveal that the grand jury was deliberately misled in order to secure an indictment against the chairman and the Uhuru Three. Once we have proof of that in the form of those grand jury transcripts, our attorneys would file another motion for dismissal on the grounds that the indictment was obtained through misleading the grand jury. In response to this request for early disclosure of the grand jury transcripts, the prosecutors have informed our attorneys that no, they will not turn over the grand jury transcripts early, and actually, they don't intend to give us the grand jury transcripts at all. So clearly, they're trying to cover up what actually happened in the grand jury. We don't suspect that the grand jury was misled. We know the grand jury was misled because they indicted us. So we already know that. And now we have, through Attorney Leonard Goodman, another motion has been filed with the judge to compel the prosecutors to disclose the grand jury transcripts to us as soon as possible. And the judge ordered that by April 24th, which is a week from today, the prosecutor has to respond to that motion, and then it will go before the judge to decide. So these are some of the updates on our case. But as I mentioned, we are confident in our victory under the leadership of Chairman Omali Yeshitela and the African Revolution. There is absolutely no way that we will lose. In fact, we are winning.
Yes, Uhuru, I really appreciate that. And, really understanding this case. And like you're saying, this has no regard for their law.
No.
This is totally above the law. It's outside of their law. They have no regard for it whatsoever. And they are just saying whatever they want to do, they can do that to attack the African liberation movement and African anti-colonial free speech and Chairman Omali Yeshitela. And it is very, very serious. I mean, we have to fight this. We have to push it back. And from the white community, it is really, really important that, that we galvanize and win as many other white people who express outrage at this and support the Hands Off Uhuru and donate to it, and, and just come to the trial as it unfolds beginning September 3rd. We need 1,000 people there, or more, literally. Absolutely, it is necessary that we have that there would be scores and scores and hundreds of people who can't get in the courtroom, that they need to get a bigger courtroom, just to take this on, and to say that Chairman Omali Yeshitela has to be free. And that, using this case, which is, what they call criminalizing, they say that the party did it, they are criminalizing free speech.
Yeah.
they are making it a crime, things that, you know, even under their own law were never could be prosecuted in the past. And even saying as well that the African People's Socialist Party is responsible for sowing discord when this is the government that murdered George Floyd and Mike Brown and has locked up millions of African people in prison for no reason whatsoever, that maintains the, you know, this wealth gap between white people and African people in this country, which is, you know, the average is that white people have assets or a house or whatever that's worth $900,000, and African people have an average of assets of about less than $20,000. That this, you know, this is the government that does this. And to say, you know, to even criminalize the fight for reparations and for justice and for the right of oppressed people to be free is sowing discord, you know, by criminalizing the people who are fighting for it. And just like making the slogan from the river to the sea, you know, Palestine will be free, they are sowing discord.
Right.
They are, you know, just attempting to suppress the rights of the people. I want to just go into the what they call the overt acts really quickly, and then we'll open it up and also see if Chairman Omali Yeshitela would like to say a few words. So let me just say there are 10 what they call overt acts. I had to look up overt acts because I didn't know what that meant, but in the indictment, and you can read this. This is on handsoffuhuru.org. So we really urge people to read the whole indictment and see, you know, how, like I said, how they use the party's historic struggle for reparations to African people and using the question, the reality of the US government's genocidal attacks on African people as, you know, proof of the demand for reparations, the legitimacy of it as an oppressed people. And they're saying that these are things that the Russians told the party to do. So it is absolutely ridiculous. And as the chairman is saying, how would a Russian know what African people experience in the United States? Right. You know, they have no idea. They have no idea. They don't live in a system like that. They're not African. And the history of this country, the colonial mode of production, like the chairman said, it goes on every single day. It's still here. It's part and parcel of not only economically and politically, but of the whole way that we experience the world as the colonizers versus the experience of the colonized. So they said that there are 10 overt acts. When I looked it up, it said that those were criminal acts. And these are our criminal acts that they list. So it says, first of all, the May 2015 visit by Chairman Omali Yeshitela to Moscow to a conference called the Dialogue of Nations, which had probably 20 or other, maybe more, organizations represented from the United States as well. Many white organizations, some other African organizations were there. But it is illegal for the party to have done that. I mean, this is absurd. The next, number 2, is the 2015 UN petition by the petition to the United Nations that was up on it was up on change.org, that was called Africans Charged Genocide, which had received more than 133,000 signatures on change.org, and the US government took it down right after the raids based on, you know, this attack that's going on. Number 3, September 2015, the chairman spoke at another Dialogue of Nations in Moscow. Anti-war people were there from the US. other Black organizations, African organizations, Irish people from Ireland, people from around the world were there. 2016, a reparations tour. So the Uhuru movement is charged with, this crime, quote unquote, for following a multi-city tour by Muriel Fanon, the daughter of Frantz Fanon, who was the United Nations, I think they call it the rapporteur for whether, on a fact-finding tour of the US, who went to about 5 or 6 cities to determine and have hearings to determine if if the United Nations should endorse reparations to African people. And I think they went to Jackson, Mississippi, Chicago, New York, Washington, DC, and a few other places. And every place they went, hundreds and hundreds of African people testified, in every city. And I had the opportunity to be with the International People's Democratic Uhuru Movement, which did follow that tour on part of the whole US-wide tour, and spoke at every event and had a powerful presentation, where it lays out the science of why African people are owed reparations and by the US government. And so it was very significant that NPDM was there, and the United Nations did rule that they would support reparations for African people. And they just recently made that determination for the first time in history. So it was very important. But this is one of our criminal acts that we followed this tour. So in the next one is an article, I think this was in 2016, an article in the Burning Spear on Russian athletes in the Olympics. So that was another criminal act. 2017, the election in St. Petersburg, Florida, where Director Akile ran for city council and Comrade Jesse ran for mayor of St. Pete. That was another criminal act. 2020, another Dialogue of Nations conference in Moscow, attended by the chairman on Zoom, by the way, because it was COVID going on. And in February 2022, webinars on Russia and Ukraine. And this was by the party and the press conference in which after the US government used Ukraine to attack Russia, the African People's Socialist Party came out in support of Russia and denouncing this US government military attack, which is totally consistent with every stance the party has ever taken against any US war anywhere. And that this is it's ridiculous. And in fact, many people support Russia, denounce the fact that the Ukraine is used as a tool of the US government, of the US military to attack the people of Russia. The African People's Socialist Party is not unusual in that way. You can go on YouTube and find countless different organizations, individuals, podcasts, putting out information in support of Russia. So, this is absolutely, I'm not a lawyer, but I feel like this must be totally unprecedented to have not only legal actions, but, benign, totally good things that many, many people participated in are now criminal acts and listed as criminal acts, and saying that the African People's Socialist Party only did this under the malign influence of Russia. So that is really outrageous.
Agreed.
And go ahead, Jesse.
No, I just want to appreciate you summing up this, and I agree that it's completely unprecedented, and going through the overt acts really helps to drive home how incredibly flimsy and weak and absurd this case is by the US government, the so-called Department of Justice against Chairman Omali Yeshitela and the Uhuru Three. One of the overt acts, 2018, International Committee for the Protection of Human Rights.
Yeah, I forgot to read
this overt act, which is part of the international criminal conspiracy to sow discord, is Chairwoman Penny Hess receiving a Facebook message, allegedly, according to the indictment, from someone in Russia about a human rights committee. The indictment does not allege that Chairwoman Penny even saw that message or ever responded to it.
I don't remember seeing that. I don't.
You're not accused of having seen it.
No, I'm accused of getting it.
Right.
Okay.
Or we're even responding to it. I mean, think about how absurd that is. Like, that's considered an overt act in a criminal conspiracy. And the thing about overt acts is that it's basically like anything that a so-called co-conspirator, which there's no conspiracy, but according to their law, anything that a co-conspirator is alleged to have carried out with the intent of fulfilling the goal of the conspiracy. So an overt act does not in and of itself have to be illegal. One example I've seen is like if there's a bank robbery that people are planning, the person who like fills the gas tank in the car that's used as a getaway car, that would be an overt act in the conspiracy of robbing the bank. This, I don't know for sure, but I suspect this might be the first time where like 100% of the overt acts are legal. All of them are legal. And what they're trying to say to make it illegal is that all of this was done as part of a Russian conspiracy to sow discord. So it's incredibly dangerous, and I think it just helps show how
outrageous. Yeah. I mean, really, they're going to spend millions of dollars to have judges and juries and all the things that they're going to do to hear this. I mean, obviously, it's a political attack.
Exactly.
And it's absolutely flimsy. And it is ridiculous.
And I just wanted to say, Chairman Omali Yeshitela put something in the chat about the financial attacks.
Yes.
And, you know, if we could just say something about that really quick, that is part of what's been happening with the attack on the party, is that you had Regions Bank closing down several bank accounts and canceling mortgages, ending lines of credit with organizations of the Uhuru movement that had been doing business and had been actually paying off, you know, early mortgages and things like that early. And they closed down their accounts. They gave no explanation. You had Stripe canceled our ability to take donations for a period of time. There was GoFundMe held $10,000 hostage for months and months and months until lawyers got involved and they finally relinquished those funds. Recently, we had the fiscal sponsor that was sponsoring the Hands Off Uhuru campaign abruptly dissolve, and we were not able to accept donations for over a month because of that, and it created shockwaves throughout the fiscal sponsor, you know, industry, if you will, where people knew that it was because of the attack on the Uhuru movement that this was happening. And we were able to set up a new fiscal sponsor. Somebody asked in the chat, so I do want to say you can continue to make donations now. You know, at handsoffuhuru.org/donate to continue donating to the Hands Off Uhuru Legal Defense Fund. But I just appreciate the chairman for raising that, because it's a full spectrum attack that the US government is waging against the African People's Socialist Party.
Yes, and I would like to ask Chairman if you would like to come on and comment for a few minutes. You don't have to, but if you would like to, we would be very, very honored. And, you know, Uhuru Chairman.
Uhuru Chairman.
Thank you.
Thank you, comrades. Yeah, I just want to express appreciation to you for this really important and I think quite effective discussion we're having with this webinar, and to express my appreciation to everybody who's come on to this meeting and this discussion. I think it's appropriate that there's a lot of attention being given to this case. I think we've heard all of the reasons why it's significant. The political, the economic, the legal reasons for it, the what it means in terms of undermining the entire spectrum of presumed rights that conferred upon people in this country within this system, and that's a very serious thing. It's not a little thing when we consider the fact that this is like a crowning achievement by the American government, the American project, that somehow, as we might characterize it, you have freedom of speech, you got constitutional rule and things like that, and that when I was a young person, they used to talk about how America is not a country of law of people, of men. It's a country of laws, and that the laws are the thing that that guarantees everybody has a right. Now what we see is a country experiencing extraordinary stress, a system experiencing extraordinary stress. The fragility of a social system is just openly and naked for everybody to see, because a strong country, a country that has confidence, a system that has confidence in itself wouldn't be blowing up, people's neighborhoods at 5 o'clock in the morning when they can't see, and occupying entire communities in the name of protecting the democracy of the people. They come and snatch and crush anything that looks like democracy for African people, and of course that's natural. And I think that's one of the good things that's coming out of this whole struggle, is that we exposing the fact that that oppression is natural for African people. There's no such thing as free speech for a slave. There's no such thing as free speech for somebody who was colonized. And we are moving against the kind of crud that has impacted and confused people subsequent to the successful military assault on our revolution that killed Malcolm, killed King, killed scores of members of the Black Panther Party and other organizations whom most people have never heard of, that had mass arrest, imprisonments of people throughout this country, some of whom were targeted because they were involved in the struggle, some of whom have been locked up for 40, 50 years. And of course, the indigenous people that's made, when we look at the comment Leonard Peltier, this is all important stuff, because while we say free Leonard Peltier, I really want to help people to understand. Of course, it's probably already understood, but I'll be redundant, because the attack on Leonard Peltier, we talk about the attack on Leonard Peltier, but it's a part of the ongoing attack on the indigenous people whose land they stole. And when you have a system that's based on colonial extraction of value of life, of everything that the colonizer has come from those who are colonized. Inside this country, we call it a settler colony. And in this settler colony, there's a domestic colony of African people, et cetera. And so there's always struggle, always resistance. Never going to be a time of not struggle and not resistance. And now what we have is the convergence of the struggle of, and we've seen this before, and we saw it with Vietnam. We've seen it in other instances. We have a convergence of the struggle of people who are domestically and colonized, people of the settler colony who are resisting. But at the same time, this is happening. We see people in China and Russia and Iran and Venezuela and various other places around the world. All of these contradictions converging, and it just exposes the fragility of a dying social system that makes them do this out of desperation, because a confident system wouldn't have to do this. Wouldn't have to say, you can't even say words. This is extraordinary. You can't say words. I did an interview the other day and said, as we know, they're not saying that we lied. Right. That's not why they attacked us. They said, even if we told the truth, that somehow we were sowing discord. And so, again, they're not even attacking us for lying. They're attacking us for talking. And that's just an extraordinary thing that we're looking at right here. So I just want to say that. And I also want to say that there are people, hundreds of people that's come at Penny Hess just mentioned, who came out when we were doing the tour with Fanon's daughter and the United Nations and the 5 or 6 cities that we went to, hundreds of people were there. And were they Russian agents also? Hundreds of Black people were there talking about the contradiction, because it was the UN investigation of the conditions of African people in this country that Fanon was participating in. So were all the African people who attended those, were they Russian agents? Should they be a part of the defense that we have in terms of going to trial? Should we be asking why the prosecutor has not involved them, indicted everybody who came out, and why they just indict us and characterize us as Russian agents for doing something that everybody who had an opportunity from our community participated in doing? I think it's really important that we continue to expose this, and that one really thing I think is important is that the people must unite, everybody, with the fact that the struggle of African people in this country, and not try to set the terms and say what that fight should be about. And because you're happy with America and you think America is wonderful, except it's got a few Forrest Gump moments or something to that effect, don't impose that on us. Like I said, the U.S. Supreme Court was quite clear in 1857 that Black man has no rights that white man had to respect. That was the law. And there's nothing that's changed that should say that is no longer the case, especially when they're still attacking homes at 5 o'clock in the morning. I don't know what time they came for Emmett Till, when they killed him in Mississippi, but this is tradition. This is American tradition that we're experiencing. And then finally, I want to just say that, and hope everybody can understand this, that what we are also witnessing is that the party's success in resurrecting a Black liberation movement that had been crushed down military with the assassination of King and Malcolm and the hit on the Black Panther Party. Huey Newton was absolutely correct when he said that the fact that they were able to attack the Black Panther Party ultimately didn't matter, because there was the Uhuru House that they attacked the Black Panther newspaper. There was the burning spear. So they haven't done anything by crushing one organization. The movement lives, and it lives through the African People's Socialist Party. And there's so much that can be said beyond that. And when the African Liberation Movement is on the rise, all struggles inside this country, that's been the history. Every oppressed person, every exploited person, even people who turn out to be work against us, like the feminist movement and the gay movement. Why is there a so-called, how do they characterize it? Gay liberation movement and women's liberation movement. I mean, these are characterizations that came from the Black liberation movement in this country. So I really appreciate everybody being here. And I'm looking forward to seeing everybody in Tampa, Florida on September 3rd. If you don't stop them before then, if we don't push them back, if we don't have a massive movement, if we don't make it necessary for them to have to stop, because every attack they make on us exposes their own weakness and their own problems and their own inadequacy as a social system. Uhuru.
Uhuru.
Yeah.
We are winning.
We are
We are
winning.
winning. Uhuru.
Uhuru, Chairman, thank you so much. And I just, really appreciate that. And just again, salute the tremendous political leadership on every aspect. You've just like torn this whole thing apart and exposed it for just the total bullshit that it is, in just such a powerful way. And I also want to unite with your call for the support for Leonard Peltier as, just as part of the attack on the indigenous people's right to this land. And when you think about where Leonard Peltier was from, the Lakota reservation, with the United States being the wealthiest country in the world based on.
Where Leonard Peltier was is a place that is not indigenous to white people.
That's right.
White people are not indigenous to this land. If it happened in Mississippi, if it happened in Florida, what they call Florida, any of these other places, this was an attack, a continuous attack on the indigenous people. And we cannot overlook the reality that there would be no such thing as America. America didn't come from the indigenous people. That's an Italian, was it Italian, Portuguese, or something to that effect? It definitely was an indigenous land. So, I mean, even this creature, and this is a problem that they have, is because the indigenous people here forever, for thousands of years, and then these forces come in as interlopers and take their land. And it's a natural defense of their land that's starting much earlier than Leonard Peltier's birth. I mean, from the initiation of the a war that they made to take this land from, and there were wars all over before even these borders that constitute what the United States are supposed to be. There were wars. I mean, the indigenous people fought up and down on almost every place in this territory, all into Mexico, so and Mexico. So the reality is that, Leonard Peltier, I mean, someone once said that in the struggle, war of national liberation, every act of resistance is self-defense. And so you don't even have to say who shot first at Wounded Knee, because the first shot was fired much earlier than Wounded Knee in taking this land, massacring the indigenous people, and the war that was made against African people as well. So free Leonard Peltier, and bust down this whole colonial construct so the people here and around the world can have a decent life. And so white people can also escape from this horrible situation that you're locked into by joining with the rest of the world. I mean, white people live in complete isolation from everybody on the goddamn planet because they've stolen everything from everybody. So they got security bars up in the house, and they leave the house, they run and hop in a car with alarms on them. And because the fact is they are surrounded by all the people from whom they've stolen everything. And if they're not surrounded by them, immediately they've got walls to make it impossible or difficult for the people to get to and access their own land, their own resources and things like that. So free Leonard Peltier, colonialism must go, death to colonialism, freedom to all the peoples, and recognizing that the road to freedom, is painted black, and it's painted red, and it's painted in the complexion of all those people who were subdued in the process of creating white people.
Yeah.
Uhuru. Yeah.
Thank you, Chairman. Well, I know we have another section, so we should probably make this very succinct, but we do need to raise resources tonight. And I know we're a little bit over, but we will have a little bit of time for people asking questions and discussion after that. So before we close out.
Uhuru, thank you, APSC Chairwoman Penny Hess and USM Chair Jesse Nevel, and especially to you, Chairman Amalia Shatella. And I do want to say, one aspect of this that really kind of keeps me motivated and focused is that, the Hands Off Uhuru Fightback Coalition is exactly that. Like, the goal isn't to the final goal isn't to just win the case and save the First Amendment. It's a counteroffensive that's opening up a whole new front.
Right.
And I think that the African People's Socialist Party and the Hands Off Uhuru Coalition are the only ones doing that.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think that's, just another reason that I think it's important that everybody on today, shows solidarity and participates in this event. I do want to let people know that we will be having a Q&A session shortly. Please submit any questions in the Zoom Q&A or in the YouTube and Facebook chat. And I want to let everybody know how you can get involved in solidarity with African people's struggle for liberation and support this work. So the most important thing that we can do to stand with all oppressed people is to join under the leadership of the African Revolution. That's why APSC was created. So we have a goal tonight to raise $1,000 for the Uhuru Solidarity Center in St. Louis. So go to apscuhuru.org/donate. And I do want to point out that the party's waging this counteroffensive while keeping all other aspects of this, movement going. And then that's what we're doing tonight.
Yeah. The Office of Deputy Chair hasn't missed a beat.
Absolutely.
In terms of what she has built.
It's been building faster than ever.
Right.
And so the funds we raise in these web events go to the expenses of the Uhuru Solidarity Center in St. Louis, a building owned by the African People's Socialist Party that APSC is responsible to develop and promote as we build the movement for white people's reparations to the African community of St. Louis and beyond. So it is the headquarters for the African People's Solidarity Committee in the US and around the world. I believe we have a PowerPoint. Excellent. So the African People's Solidarity Committee is unique in that it is a strategic front of the African liberation movement behind enemy lines in the white community. And it is led by the African People's Socialist Party. APSC was founded in 1976. So I've got some excellent pictures there. The mass organization of APSC is the Uhuru Solidarity Movement, with members in 117 cities in the US and Canada. APSC is a cadre organization, which means that we adhere to African internationalism, the worldview of the African People's Socialist Party, which is a worldview to change the world, not just analyze it. A theory that demands practice with tangible results on the ground. That's part of what we're doing tonight. So next slide. The national headquarters of APSC and USM is the Solidarity Center at 2654 Gravois Avenue, St. Louis, Missouri. There's a picture of the front right there. So next slide. The Uhuru Solidarity Movement holds the annual March for Reparations in St. Louis and in other cities around the US. USM does outreach, tabling, and hosts numerous political events, as well as tours throughout the US. The main work of APSC and USM is reparations, returning stolen resources to the programs of the party, building political and economic power to the African working class. And next slide, the programs include the Black Power Blueprint and the Uhuru Houses, Uhuru Pies, and Black Power 96.3 FM and the Burning Spear newspaper. And that is just a tiny glimpse at everything that the party's doing. A critical front of all the work under the leadership of the party is the Hands Off Uhuru, Hands Off Africa Fightback Coalition, pushing back the state attacks on the African liberation movement. Chairman Omali Yeshitela is the target of the FBI bogus colonial attack, along with Penny Hess and Jesse Nevel. And I would like to call on everybody all out for the trial, September 3rd in Tampa. So federal court, we will win, build the anti-colonial free speech movement. Uhuru. Uhuru. I do want to shout out. So we do have some pledges, some donations. We have $50 from Lisa. So I'm pledging $25. Allison, $25 donated here in St. Louis. Uhuru. And we also have Anonymous in Florida, $50. Oh, and Stephanie, $40. So Uhuru. Don't forget, please go to apscuhuru.org/donate to put in, your donation, or you can put in the chat. Uhuru, Paul. Uhuru, $40 from Paul. We have Leah in Minneapolis, $50. So Uhuru, yes, we're well on our way to that $1,000 goal. So yeah, thank you to everybody that's donated. So yeah, that is 240. Oh wait, actually, I think so. Paul was 40, right? Okay, so 280. So over a quarter of the way to that $1,000 goal.
And I'll put in 20 to make it 300.
Uhuru, Chairman and Penny, $20. So 300. We have 700 left to hit that goal tonight. So I want to thank everybody that's contributed so far, and you know, call on people to keep donating as we go through the Q&A and everything. So apscahuru.org/donate, you know, be a part of this movement. And you know, if you want to join, you can, you know, support this on an ongoing basis. So yeah, if you want to join the African People's Solidarity Committee, because that is, I mean, that is the way to show true unconditional solidarity, because this organization, you know, was founded by Chairman Omali Yeshitela and the African People's Socialist Party to work directly under the leadership of the African Revolution, to tell the truth, which is why, you know, why members of the African People's Solidarity Committee are being attacked right now, and take full responsibility to stop the violence of colonialism, win reparations, rectify the last 500 years of genocide committed by Europeans and Americans that we directly benefit from today. Everyone in this, every white person in this country, in Europe, is benefiting, you know, from this system. So joining APSC is how we can, you know, fight back against that and say, we don't want to be a part of that. So go to apscahuru.org/join and fill out the form. Someone from the membership office will contact you within 24 hours, and we will get started on the new membership process that includes political education and getting to work, contributing your skills and strengths to our mission of winning millions and reparations to the African liberation struggle and building a massive movement of white solidarity with Black power under the leadership of the party. This is the time to bring all the resources stolen from African people for hundreds of years, bringing it back to the African Revolution. So join today, go to apscahuru.org. And I think we're about ready to head into our Q&A. I do want to shout out Maureen, another $50 donation. So we're at $350 at Uhuru. So keep it coming. We'll get started with our Q&A here. I do want to shout out, we have people tuning in today from Indiana, Pennsylvania.
Yeah.
Uhuru, which is a place.
That's Berkey.
Yeah, that's Uhuru. Tampa, Florida, Louisville, Kentucky. Of course, we have everybody at the center here in St. Louis, Missouri, Largo, Florida, Ferguson, Missouri, New York City. And that's just what we've seen on here.
We also have Bob Gallup joining us.
Robert, how are you?
And
I believe in California, Northern California.
And also Janet in California.
Janet.
Oh, and we did just get some more donations, $25 from Janice in St. Pete and $50 from Ruby here in St. Louis.
Right.
Ruby is coordinating the upcoming Give STL Day happening on May 9th, and we'll have a live event April 24th.
That's right, next week.
Yeah, the Uhuru Bakery and Cafe.
Yeah.
It's really exciting.
Very important. Everybody needs to hop onto that. So just to say, we do have a few comments. Should we go into that?
Yeah, let's get started.
Just reading some comments that are here. Chairman Omali Yeshitela said earlier, after the video, the military forces that you saw in the video in front of his house were just a few, because it was a whole army that came into each place. There was only a few of those who were actually involved in the attack, and the attack, that video was taken, you know, well into hours into the attack. And the chairman also said, we are not even talking about the war being made on our movement and anti-colonial institutions that include bank sanctions and other attacks. And we did talk about that a little bit, but just to say, this is how the US government treats who they consider enemies of other governments. And this is how they're treating the African liberation movement. They're putting sanctions on them. They're boycotting them. You know, just all the ways that they attempt to starve out oppressed and colonized peoples. Janice Kant said on Zoom, 9 hours at the Uhuru House. So the FBI, that army that you saw going in, were there at 9 hours, coming at 6 a.m. there and staying till 3 p.m.
Right.
And Janice Kant said, would you be able to let people know how about the financial attacks, and that they can now donate again with the
Yes.
new fiscal sponsors? So do you want to talk about that
Yeah,
a little bit?
I was speaking to that one earlier.
Okay,
I saw
yeah.
that question earlier, but yeah, thank you for raising that, Janice. And people have actually been donating to handsoffuhuru.org/donate during this event. So
Yeah,
thank you, and please continue to do that.
yeah. So and that was a struggle, but we
Yeah.
got through it. Every obstacle, we're getting there. Let me see. Aurora, really great to see you, comrade, on Zoom. She's saying no need to suspect when dealing with a corrupt entity. We know that the government won't fight with real justice of any kind. We stand in solidarity with the Uhuru 3. Uhuru. All right, Aurora. That's awesome. Chairman O'Malley Shatella said, with this attack and others, we are witnessing severe fragility of a dying social system. The colonizers cannot win an ideological or political debate with the colonized. They are only left with extreme violence as a response to the criticism by the oppressed. And that we can see that in terms of this case. We can see that in terms of what the US-backed Israeli government has done to the Palestinian people as well. So yes, this is really, really powerful that we can take this on the political arena. And as the chairman has said, this case will be won in the streets.
Yes,
So
yeah.
we need to, everybody that's on here, we need to have, everybody everybody in your base needs to be in Tampa, and also to come on all of the webinars of Hands Off Uhuru to stay updated. And this coming Saturday, please register, because we're going to have a powerful webinar co-sponsored by Hands Off Uhuru and the Leonard Peltier Ad Hoc Committee, devoted to the case of Leonard Peltier. It's going to be at 2 p.m. Central. You can go to tinyurl.com/Uhuru Peltier, UHURUPELTIER, to register and sign up on the Zoom. It's going to be a really, really moving and powerful event. So please come out to that. And then Aurora says, again, it is unprecedented in a time that the US government begins actively and without hiding that they are attacking any attempt at progress. So they're just blatant. They're just blatant, pushing back, trying to push back it all. And the from Facebook, Gail Cohen, have you had any support at all from the NAACP? I don't remember any support from the NAACP. I don't know if the chairman can address that, but I don't think so. I haven't seen that.
I hadn't heard that.
Yeah, I haven't seen that. We've had plenty of opportunities for anybody, because we've had almost 2 years of webinars at least every month, sometimes twice a month, and had reached hundreds and literally thousands of people with these webinars. And so every organization has had the ability to step up and support Hands Off Uhuru,
Absolutely.
if they want to. And Paul, you had your hand up?
Yeah.
Can you come up to I know this, just so other people can hear it.
Sure. What the chairman teaches us is that law is so fluid in the hands of the ruling class that it's whatever they need at that moment to support the system that keeps them in power. And so in the art of war, you're taught to think like your enemy. So I'm thinking, what are they thinking discord is? And what I'm realizing simply is that discord is that this movement is one of the only movements that's intervening in the complicity in the white community. And we're actually exposing people to the truth, and their discomfort that might turn them against the ruling class is discord. And so we're basically guilty of waking people up. And speaking to the relationships that they live under too. And it's just amazing how this ruling class can just change law in a second when they feel threatened. And the threat is intervening in the brains of white people. So we're chairman for that leadership.
Through the leadership of the colonized, yes, and saying that African people are going to be free and have a right to be free, have a right to their stolen resources, and for self-government, not about integration or, you know, against racism. This is about self-government, African people taking power and doing it, you know, in reality here in St. Louis in the Black Power Blueprint. Very, very important, and really appreciate that statement, Paul.
Uhuru.
So the chairman said, Uhuru, nothing from the NAACP. They also did not support Garvey, to say the least. Uhuru.
Yeah.
Uhuru, chairman, thank you for that.
Oh, so here, one of the Uhuru 3 attorneys is president of the NAACP chapter in Tallahassee.
Well, that is
but
true.
Organizationally, no endorsement.
That's right. I
don't
don't
know
know
who
who
that's
put, I
from.
don't know who put that in, but that is true. That is true.
Accurate.
And he is a very, very powerful attorney.
Definitely.
And also Gail said, and it is clear that this organization or movement is being discriminated against. I have not followed it closely, but clearly it is the government abusing the people the same way they abused and killed the Black Panthers and members of MOVE in Philadelphia. Support them here in St. Pete. Uhuru, Gail.
Uhuru, yes, absolutely. And it is the trajectory. And by the way, the party was the first, the reinforcements on the way. That's why they went to Philadelphia and sent forces there, and are still very, very dear comrades with Mike Africa and Pam Africa and the struggle to free Mumia. I mean, this is part and parcel of who the party is. And yeah, so it is the same trajectory, trying to crush the right of African people to be free. And we should be outraged as white people, and this should make us want to fight and struggle and overturn a system that wants to perpetuate the colonization and suffering of people for our benefit. You know, no more. Like we're, you know, this can't, we don't stand with that. We stand with the right of African people to be free and the return of stolen resources.
Absolutely. So keep donating. If you're watching this recording, you can still donate. You can still join. Go to apscuhuru.org to do both. And before we move,
just one more comment from the chairman, because I guess you can see the these are pictures on the wall from
evidence,
some like 40 years ago. And they're saying that, you know, the question of genocide was something the Russians told the party to say. These are demonstrations marked against genocide.
Yeah, 1992, earlier.
Yeah, some of them were 1979, 1980.
So the Russian that they're claiming influenced or told the party to struggle against genocide would have been 4 years old when that was held.
That's right. Uhuru. Thank you, Chairman.
Uhuru, and before we go into the announcements and closing, I do want to ask Chairwoman Penny, Chair Jesse, and Chairman, do you have any final words?
Uhuru, well, I just, you know, I would like to ask the chairman to come on and give us some parting words here. And I am inspired always by the chairman's leadership, by the African People's Socialist Party, and the relentless, the party's moniker, whatever, is relentless, because that's what it is. It is never going away. It is winning. It will fight till they are free, period, till African people are free and have their reparations and have Africa. And I just feel that, you know, this case in, you know, it's a huge attack, but it's also dialectically brought some really powerful things so that they can't deny, you know, that suddenly now hundreds and if not thousands more people know who Chairman Omali Yeshitela is, know who the African People's Socialist Party is. And so many people have supported, and, you know, Tucker Carlson interviewed the chairman, and this is out there in a way that it wouldn't have been without such an attack that escalated, you know, all of this response. So I just wanted to say that, Chairman, it's an honor to have you here. So I want to turn it over to you before we close out.
Or just want to, let's see. Don't know if just wanted to express my appreciation to all of you and to these incredible comrades who've come on to this webinar with us from various places within the United States and other places in the world. And just to remind everybody what it means to support this case. Of course, the free speech issue is a critical kind of question. That's why we talk about anti-colonial free speech too, because that's the foundation for any free speech that anybody has in this country. And that the government has given us an opportunity at different times during this process to either run, took 9 months for an indictment after they attack us in this very violent way they did, or even to step forward and try to make some kind of plea deal, try to forward to confess to something that we didn't do, and as a means of escaping the kind of brutality that we've been experiencing since the attack on us. But you know, we remind everybody, and we remind the government when it's necessary, that we didn't, and certainly I didn't, get involved in this movement to get me out of prison, and didn't get in this movement to keep anybody else out of prison. Although fighting to get people out of prison is a part of a process that we're involved in. The struggle, the ultimate aim of this movement is the liberation of our people and the destruction of a colonial mode of production that sucks the blood and resources and hope and future from all the people on this planet Earth. We will be free. That's why we're here. And we're calling on you to be able to unite with that as well. Recognize that despite all of this bluster and all of the bombings and things we've seen them do and facilitate in various places around the world, despite all of that, it's a dying social system. And the people are truly the real makers of history, and especially people who are conscious of their role and understand something about what I think it was some European Hegel, I think, once talked about freedom is recognition of necessity. And I think that what we've done is contribute to the ability of people to understand necessity, the production of life and reproduction of life, and to do it in a fashion where the producers of life have access and control of the life that we produce. So anyway, thank you, comrades, and let's beat them up and kick the ass of the ruling class, and let's kick it down the street as we move forward. And hopefully, you know, if necessary, we kick their asses in Tampa, Florida. But if we can kick their asses by the time we get to New Jersey, that'll be all right too. You know, but we're on our way to victory on September 3rd. Uhuru, thank you so much, comrades. Uhuru.
Thank you so much, Chairman, for coming on. And we want to thank everybody who contributed tonight and also who came on. I think we have a few announcements.
Yes.
Jesse, do you just want to say a couple of words before we go to announcements?
Uhuru, no, I just really appreciate this webinar, everybody who tuned in, Chairwoman Penny, and of course, Chairman Amali Shatella, and just want to express how excited I am to be a part of this, how honored I am to be a part of this, and looking forward to kicking the ass of the ruling class.
We're making history.
Yes, Uhuru.
Uhuru.
Uhuru, under the leadership of the African People's Socialist Party. So I think we have some announcements.
Yes. Thank you, comrades. Oh, and I do want to.
Let's go, Brendan.
We're going. I do want to shout out Comrade John McCarthy, said on YouTube in an interview earlier this week, former Congresswoman Cynthia McKinney said she wants to help with the fight back and is waiting to be given an assignment. So we'll get on that. We will get on that. Okay, but now here to the announcements. So on Saturday, April 20th at 3 p.m. Eastern, 2 p.m. Central, join an event hosted by the Leonard Peltier Ad Hoc Committee and the Hands Off Uhuru Fightback Coalition titled The Case of Leonard Peltier, Why His Liberty is Bound to Ours. Learn the history of the Leonard Peltier's case, why we must work to free this courageous anti-colonial indigenous freedom fighter who has been locked up.
It's actually why our liberty is bound to his. That's yeah.
Oh, right. So a little backward. Flip that around. Why our
really makes
liberty
sense that way.
Yeah.
To say,
Yeah. Absolutely. But Comrade Leonard Peltier has been locked up in the colonial dungeons for nearly 50 years for defending his people on the Lakota Reservation in the 1970s. Featuring revolutionary professor, writer, and activist Ward Churchill, African People's Socialist Party Chairman Omali Yeshitela, and Leonard's lead appeal attorney Jennifer Jones. Register at tinyurl.com/Uhuru Peltier. And we'll make sure that gets put into the chat.
Also,
yes.
Let me just say also on that, this is going to be really amazing. Julia Wright, who is the daughter of Richard Wright, the great novelist, who actually lives in France, and she will be on video, but she will be reciting a poem that she wrote from Mia Abu Jamal and Leonard Peltier. So that's going to be very powerful.
So do not miss that.
Also, Mike Kuzma, who is a very dynamic part of the legal team, who is battling the Freedom of Information Act that they're refusing to give the FOIA files around the more than 100 murders on the reservation by the US government. And many more. There's also going to be Lenny Foster, who is a religious, I guess you would say a spiritual leader of the Lakota people. There's going to be a lot of amazing people on this. It's going to be incredible.
So yeah,
as well as music by Pedro Crow Dog, who was born during the uprising at Wounded Knee. I think it was at Pine Ridge. Yeah, during that time. So he was born that day.
Wow.
Yeah, so
come and be a part of that. Do not miss this important web event, this important part of the fight back. Next slide, please. Sign up to be an anti-colonial recruiter during the USM membership drive weekend. This Saturday, April 20th and Sunday, April 21st. Join us on Earth Day tables in St. Louis, Missouri, Columbus, Ohio, St. Pete/Tampa, Florida, Oakland, the Bay Area, San Francisco Bay, California, Puget Sound, Washington, in your city. If you can't make it to one of those, then just have one. So the theme of the spring membership drive is No Climate Justice on a Foundation of Genocide. White people join in solidarity with African, Indigenous, and all oppressed people's struggle against colonialism. Sign up at tinyurl.com/spring membership drive. And if you are interested in joining the membership drive weekend, and we'll have that in the chat as well. Next slide. The Omali Taught Me live Sunday studies have resumed. Tune in Sundays at 9 a.m. Central on youtube.com/@theburningspear or facebook.com/omali.yeshitela. Next slide. On Wednesday, April 24th at 7:30 p.m. Eastern, 6:30 Central, or 4:30 Pacific.
It's a week from tonight.
Yes, yeah. So tune in for the Black Power Blueprint live broadcasting from the new Uhuru Bakery and Cafe right here in St. Louis. This program features APEDF Board President Onezine Yeshitela, Uhuru Foods and Pies Vice Chair Bakari Olatunji, and special musical guest Brenda Farrington, and many, many more. This live webinar is part of fundraising to open Uhuru Bakery and Cafe through the Give STL Day campaign. Uhuru Bakery and Cafe is part of the Black Power Blueprints project to transform and uplift the conditions of the Black community in North St. Louis in every aspect of life. Register for the webinar at tinyurl.com/Uhuru Bakery Live. Next slide. Save the date for an exciting webinar on Sunday, May 5th at 12 p.m. Central, sponsored by the African Socialist International, titled France Out, US Out, Forward the African Revolution and Building Solidarity with the African Resistance in Niger. Special guest speakers include Chairman Omali Yeshitela, Comrade Ibrahim Hamadou of the Free Trade Union on the ground in Niger, Director of International Affairs, Secretary General Luwezi Kinshasa, and other leaders from Sierra Leone, Ghana, South Africa, known as Occupied Azania. Register at tinyurl.com/handsoffniger. Next slide. Mark your calendars for Wednesday, May 15th at 6:30 p.m. Central. Join the African People's Solidarity Committee for part 2 of an online study and discussion. What is the colonial mode of production and how can white people be anti-colonialist? Register to reserve your seat in this study. Go to apscuhuru.org/study. Next slide. Distributors of the Burning Spear newspaper, it is time to restock on the April issue or get your pre-orders in for the May issue. Go to theburningspear.store. And a reminder, you can find resources to support your distribution efforts at apscuhuru.org/spear toolkit. Next slide. A reminder to tune in to the White Lies Shattered series on the Reparations in Action FM radio show and podcast. You can listen Fridays at 3 p.m. Eastern/2 p.m. Central Time on Black Power 96.3 FM in St. Petersburg, Florida, or get episodes on demand at uhurusolidarity.podbean.com or wherever you get your podcasts. Search for White Lies Shattered. And we actually do have a new episode going up this Friday at 8 a.m. Central Time. Next slide. Uhuru Planet Reparations apparel is clothing, accessories, and more that is forwarding the culture of white reparations to African people. It is an institution of Black Star Industries. Go to the online store at uhuruplanet.com to check out the newest designs, including the No More Genocide in Our Name special edition shirts from the USM convention. Uhuru. So find details about these and many more upcoming events at theburningspear.com/events. Make sure to visit uhurusolidarity.org and apscuhuru.org to learn more about the Uhuru Solidarity Movement, the African People's Solidarity Committee, and how you can become a member and join the work to build white solidarity with Black power and unity through reparations. Thank you so much, APSC Chairwoman Penny Hess and USM Chair Jesse Nevel, and of course, Chairman Omali Yeshitela for coming on, and to all of you, everybody who came on, participated, who contributed today. That concludes tonight's event. We will see you next time. Hands off the Uhuru 3. And I just want to say to close out, from the river to the sea, Palestine will be free.